How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Blue Shifting. Welcome back to Muv-Luv Monday, where we're going back through Total Eclipse. And yeah, so Yuya and Yuya finally had their real headbutting session. Like, we all saw it coming. It was telegraphed a long time ago, but it was impressive. It was quite something to see. So yeah, now we know that they are officially like at odds with each other. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm guessing we're about to hear about Yuya complaining about, or actually he tends to be someone who keeps stuff to himself, so maybe he's not going to complain. Though they're probably going to try and goad him into complaining, because it sounds like we're here kind of at the bar, kind of having a relaxing kind of after training exercise party. But yeah, so far so interesting. The Russians and the Americans and like the way they're working together, the relationships they've got right now in this setting is just really interesting. Like, it's so odd that, like, with so much of the world burning and falling apart and literally livable, that people still hold so tightly to their cultural identity. But then again, maybe that's because that's one of the few things they can still hold to. So thus it makes them more adamant and more, like, aggressive about it. So maybe this kind of pseudo-Cold War type attitudes between Russia and the United States makes sense in that way. But I don't know. Anyway, let's jump right into things. I don't think there's anything else to really say. Just excited to see what happens next in the story. So let's just get started. All right, so come on, Teresa, raise your glass. Let's have a toast.
何にだよ。そんな気分じゃないっての。
Why does she talk without moving her teeth?
今ここにいない我らがアルゴスワンに。でしょ？
あいつせっかく慰めてやろうと思ったのに断りやがって。
おいおい、お前さんがあんな猫なで声で誘ったら、怪しすぎて普通断るって。
なんだよ BG だって同情見え見えだったじゃんかよ。
Wait, I thought they were just messing with her. Is she actually trying to flirt with Yuya? If she is, she's not doing a good job, because I had no clue.
はいはい、わかった。ほんじゃ、ステラ、さっきので頼むわ。
Oh, maybe they're just trying to get him to be more sociable.
ユーヤが必死で守ろうとしたテストパイロットの名誉に。
名誉に。
あら、いらっしゃい。今日もお揃い。じゃないわね。ブリッジス少尉は？
Yeah.
ああ、ちょっとな。今日は一人反省会の気分だってよ。
Yeah. He sucked in the training ship. His excuses were pretty poor, and then he butted heads with his superior. So, you know, it's going great.
一人反省会？
ああ。米軍トップテストパイロットのメンツ丸つぶれだったからな。いい気味だ。
へえ、彼米軍のトップだったんだ。意外にすごいのね。
所詮米軍ってことさ。平和など田舎のお山の大将ってね。
I see. Yeah, I mean, I get the deck was stacked against him for sure, but Yui had a pretty solid point that instead of, like, he was so stubbornly set in the ways that he's been successful. Like, he's built this really impressive muscle memory that really makes him a fantastic pilot, but that kind of backstabbed him today because he got so entrenched in his ways that when he went into a TSF that worked slightly differently, that had, you know, different flying statistics, you know, it moved in a slightly different way. It bared its weight differently. It likely had different mass entirely, which means it needs to be flown differently. Especially because it seems like even though it was a training TSF, it had more power behind it than he was expecting. So he's used to heavier duty TSFs that weigh a lot more, and so they're a bit more bulky. They're more sluggish in their movements. It seems like the Japanese design inherently, which makes sense, is built around speed and less about armor. But that's something that apparently took him so off guard, and he never adjusted to it, which is the thing. It's like, it'd be one thing if it just, you know, caught him off guard and made him flat-footed. I think anybody would. But the fact that he, instead of like trying to adjust and recalibrate the way he was flying, stuck with what he knew, flew terribly, and then just blamed the machine for it. There were problems with the machine, and it was not ideal. But it's also kind of a good point. Like, you don't always have ideal situations in combat. Like, going against Beta, you're not always going to, like, to assume your TSF is always going to be functioning like the same way through an entire battle is silly. It's ludicrous, in fact. So he really does have to get this attitude adjustment, especially because while he's a great pilot, in the American system, because America doesn't go toe-to-toe with Beta very often, and those who do usually are working with the UN rather than like an American detachment, they likely don't quite have that perspective properly. And I think that that's a detriment in general because they aren't on the front lines all the time. They don't really have the same appreciation for just what this conflict's about or the stakes. I mean, we all know the stakes, but like not like people who have lost their nations and lost their friends and family to it.
そんなことないわよ。アメリカの陸軍戦技犬って言えば、ワシントン州のヤキマに本拠地を置く実戦志向の少数精鋭部隊よ。
知っていたのか、ステラ。
その中でも機密性の高いエリア51。グルームレイク基地の派遣分隊にいたユーヤは、まさに精鋭中の精鋭。その実力は、初日の AH 演習で思い知ったでしょ？
別に。
Right.
つまり、彼本物のエリートってことね。
それだけに、今日の結果で受けるショックも半端じゃねってことさ。
でしょうね。
もう。
It's a tough pill to swallow when you've been so used to being top dog in front of the general headquarters building. Yeah, he's just moping around.
端的に言えば、機体側の異常は全く認められなかった。
Oh, so he thought it might have been sabotage? I mean, okay, so Yuya is a classic narcissist, it turns out, which makes a lot of sense. But the thing is like, this idea that, like, the world revolves around him, that he's an exception to the rules, that when things go wrong, it can't be his fault. Like, he has to look at every other thing. Like, it was like a bad TSF. And now he's saying, like, maybe they messed with my TSF to purposely, like, make me bad. Like, he's trying to eliminate all the reasons why it could not be his fault or his problem, why things didn't go well. Like, is it beyond help? No, I think Yuya's got qualities. I mean, he's human. We're all narcissistic, selfish, and in some regard. Like, in some way we are. But he's got such a big ego right now because he's just so used to being the big dog, the top cheese. I mean, that's part of why his relations fell apart back home. It wasn't necessarily that his recklessness led to a death of a beloved commander. That was a big deal. But if he wasn't so antagonistic, if he wasn't so self-serving, if he wasn't so determined to just put himself on a pedestal above everybody else and to not lower himself to being friendly and cordial with his wingmates and with others in his group, he might have been okay. Like, people would have understood and had sympathy for him. Instead, they all alienated him because he went from a guy who was like just a cocky pilot who's really good to a cocky pilot who killed somebody they like and didn't get punished for it. And that's probably what broke down that system. That why he is now where he is because he just doesn't care about, like, taking care of the other things that get involved with being in a military structure. You can't just be a good pilot. You have to be a good pilot and you have to be a good soldier. And part of being a good soldier is understanding that you're not alone. You need to have other people's backs, and you need to be able to like trust them enough and let them trust you enough to work together properly. So yeah, Vincent, good job.
お前のレポートに沿って念入りにチェックした結果だ。
そうか。
不本意だろうが、タイプ97は正常だ。挙動のブレとやらは、こいつの仕様だよ。
My feelings on the matter are irrelevant. Whether it was broken or in perfect condition, I failed to get a handle on the machine. That makes me the problem. Thank you. At least he's not so pig-headed he doesn't eventually see that. Like, Yuya got to him and really pushed his buttons, but she was right, and he's listened. I don't know if he's going to accept it, but he listened. I've been deploying American TSFs all my life, but it sure ain't looking like I'll be able to pilot a Japanese TSF with confidence anytime soon. Even if its motion patterns is according to specifications, I don't understand what's beneficial about having the machine skid like that. I piloted all kinds of machines, TSFs that could be charitably called coffins, experimental proof-of-concept crafts, and pre-deployment mass production prototypes. In all my years, I've never seen one of them incorporate such a pointless feature on purpose. The darn thing feels like it's walking on ice, slipping sideways all the time. It's impossible to draw a bead on my target when the darn TSF won't stay still, and it even affects melee combat. Actually, though, that's a feature, not a flaw. This is me spitballing here, but I think it's slippery like that because mobility is insanely important on the battlefield. You can't expect to win against the beta standing and firing in a firing squad line, you know, like British, like military style, like I'm talking old British, by the way, not modern British, like redcoats British. You can't expect that to work. I mean, even if you take away the tank class that can just ignore those shots as they're charging at you, like they'll overwhelm you with numbers that way. You need to be mobile, you need to be moving, and you need to be positioning yourself to be in the most strategic area possible. The sliding lets you keep moving and firing at the same time. Like it's a way of developing a type of slapstick combat maneuvering that I think is meant to be that way, because we've seen how that can be utilized to keep yourself mobile whilst also being able to fire. It's almost like the difference between an archer on the ground firing, which is, good, or a horse archer. A horseback archer won't have the range or the accuracy, especially at range, of a longbowman who's just standing on a high piece of ground. But the mobility can easily make up for that in a tactical way. It just means you have to approach battles differently. Horse archers charge in closer to their enemies to make it so they can actually hit them, but their mobility makes it hard to pin them down, even with other arrows, which is usually how archers, like if you can't charge archers with if you can't outflank them with your own cavalry or anything, the next best thing to fight them with is other archers. But being able to fight archers with mobile archer cavalry seems like the best situation you could ever have there. Anyway, God, I'm just chatting today. Hi, I hope you don't mind.
貴様の技量は、吹雪 F15 の両機を乗りこなす我が国の英士に比べ、確実に劣っているということだ。
That's a good jab, though. She's saying, look, a common Japanese fighter can easily fly a Fubuki effectively, and they can fly an American, the Kagaru. I guess Kagaru, or what's the Kagaru? Because that doesn't sound like an American design, but maybe it's the more Americanized version. I can't remember exactly. I wish I could just pull this stuff off the top of my head. I wish I were a living wiki of Muv-Luv, because I love this stuff. And I think I know a pretty good amount of this stuff that I've been able to learn through the games and also through some of your comments. But when it comes to some model, like a lot of the models that aren't mainline models, I lose track of which ones are which easily. Fetch. Whether it comes down to TSF handling or intuition, I've always been in a league of my own. I've thrown everything away to pursue this one goal with single-minded dedication. I have nothing else. Yeah. See, that's the problem. At least he can see that's his problem, because it would have taken Takaru another few weeks to figure out what his problem is. So at least he can be self-aware. But he's also got a stubborn streak I think is going to impede his ability to actually learn. I had to, or I wouldn't have made it this far. I'd never made a test pilot. The cream of the crop among surface pilots, or been chosen as the #1 pilot in the U.S. Army Combat Technology Research Unit.
帝国の英士は、貴様が直面した状況より過酷な前線に送り出されても、吹雪をうまく使いこなしているが。
She's right too.
吹雪で錬成された我が国の英士は、貴様が絶賛する F15 も同様に使いこなすと。
Okay, so the Kagaru is the F-15. It's just an interesting name because most of the names of the U.S. TSFs are based on the naming schemes or actual names of American fighters. Like the Raptor, and everything. So the Kagaru, I guess it's just I'm not sure where that comes from exactly. But yeah, she's got a point. Was that woman telling the truth? Even if she lied to win a little debate, a simple check of the Imperial battle records would expose the truth afterward. Her credibility as a lead developer would be shot. Nobody would be stupid enough to pick that fight. No, she meant every word. There was no lie in her eyes. All my life, others have looked at me with eyes full of hatred and contempt. I've learned how to tell. It's a survival skill. It's impossible to miss the sincerity in her gaze. Son of a bee, I'm practically admitting she was right, aren't I? Yeah! No, think about it. She's been born and raised in a militaristic frontline country. Maybe she's just dumb enough to swallow Japanese propaganda and has long since stopped to think for herself. Okay, I hope he realizes this because think about what you're saying. Could that have happened? Yes. Could that have happened to somebody who was then elected to lead like advanced Japanese development of TSFs? Like it'd be one thing if it were just a pilot on the front lines in Japan. But she's been given a position of authority in a joint like development program to make a better TSF for the Japanese front lines. They wouldn't just shove some nobody who doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to pilots and TSFs. They wouldn't do that. Plus, we also had the insider knowledge that she was trained to be as a Royal Guard family member, which pretty much means that in the world, she's probably one of the top flyers, TSF pilots. It's a possibility I can't deny at this point, but what if it's not? Because it would mean there's something wrong with my skills, something wrong with my fundamental piloting instincts. No, there's no way. There's that narcissism there.
その者たちはすべて、半年の即成カリキュラムしか受けていない。
Half a year means they've got at least a couple months to get used to how their TSF handles. That on top of lectures covering its specifications and operation. That stupid bee. Where does she get off? Anyone could handle any TSF after hours and hours of practice. You can't. You have no business in the line of work. Yeah, and they get cut from that all the time. In fact, you wouldn't throw someone into a cockpit with no forewarning and hope everything works out. That was plain and irresponsible and could have led to tragic consequences if someone less proficient was sitting in the cockpit. Oh, interesting. Suddenly, tragic outcomes are really bothering you. Well, I'm sure they bothered him. He just didn't say anything. There's a standard procedure to follow. I would have performed closer to my usual level if I'd been briefed on the TSF's characteristics. She gave you the information, though. Granted, you only had 2 hours, but didn't you look at that information? It would have told you that. Anything that you're, like, talking about. Unless you wanted someone to sit down and spoon feed you what it would be like flying the Fubuki. In that case, I don't think you're going to find a lot of sympathy here, Yuya. That was a close call. I almost bought what that woman was selling. Yeah, I sure can't let my guard down around the Japanese. After Mom and I had to eat crap all our lives, I should have known better, shouldn't I? All courtesy of that Japanese butthole who played around with Mom and then tossed her aside. Mother effer ruined her life. Son of a bee. It's getting chilly. As if getting transferred to the middle of the gosh darn nowhere wasn't bad enough, the nights here are so freaking cold my butt's gonna freeze off. You're in Alaska. I understand it's not fun, but are you surprised? You're lucky that there's not snow on the ground. Like, we're in, like, the only time of the year, which is probably what most people would consider, like, summer. Like, there's, like, 6 months where, like, you might not see snow on the ground. Probably won't. But then the other 6, you probably do. Most of us only have to deal with snow for, like, 2 months. And that's if we live anywhere, like, in the north or southern hemisphere. Like, not near the equator.
寒いの?
Oh, hello? Oh, hello. Huh? Is that a kid?
寒いの?
Oh, yeah, I am. What's a kid doing here alone this late at night? Hey, where's your family? Could it be their HQ personnel or something like that?
家族? クリスカとミーシャのこと?
That's what your relatives are called?
うん。
So that means you're from the Soviet Union, right?
うん。
Okay. Why would a Soviet civilian? Hell, why would a little kid hang out near the UN headquarters? Pretty sure we're quite a ways from Little Fort. Do you know where your parents are? Are you lost?
迷子?
If you're not lost, you should go back home soon. This area is off limits to civilians, even if you're a relative of the staff. Oh, he's in for a rude awakening. Dude, like, I'm one of the pilots in that TSF that kicked your butt. This is going nowhere. She's old enough to know better, but it's clear she doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. One look at her face tells me she didn't get half of what I said. Jeez, this is why I don't like kids. Hey, is your family somewhere around here?
近くに家族はいないよ.
What? What the heck is she doing? No wonder that doesn't matter. There's no point in badgering her with questions. Safety comes first. She needs to go home ASAP. You should hurry back to the Soviet Union's residential area. I mean, hurry back home. Wait, something doesn't add up. Soviet's residential area in the Soviet territory, and that's on the other side of the Porcupine River. It's got to be at least 10 kilometers away. Can she even make it back home on her own? How did you get here anyway? Shuttle bus?
歩いて。
You walked? Meaning she can't get back using public transportation, huh? No way she knows the name of her bus stop or anything like that. Them's the breaks, I guess. I'll take you to the entrance of the Soviet residential area. I know I'm kind of a butthole, but I just don't have it in me to tell the little girl to walk back home alone. Thank goodness. Anyway, what are you doing wandering around in the middle of the night? Seriously, you're gonna catch a cold.
あなたは平気？
Huh? What is she doing? Oh, right. Right. Okay, so my theory, pretty substantiated, I don't think anyone's going to debate that I'm wrong about this, is that she's part of the same program that Kasumi was. Like, the same breakdown program. And if so, she can read at least surface emotions from him. So his frustration, his anger, his bitterness, and maybe even, like, below that, like, the fear of not being able to live up to, like, what he thinks he should be. And so that's what she's asking for, because she can read his surface. There's no malice in her eyes, an innocent so pure it's borderline eerie. Maybe she has yet to experience the realities of the world? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm a sturdy one, so don't worry about me catching a cold.
そうじゃなくて、心。
My heart? What is that supposed to mean? I really doubt it, but maybe she can tell I've been having a rough day. Thinking about it, I totally forgot about my worries the moment I met this little girl. And her gaze, it's calming, for lack of a better word. What a weird kid.
もう平気？
Well, yeah, I'm okay. Right as rain. Aw, she's adorable. I really am getting strong Kasumi vibes. That's obviously not, like, that unintentional, that's intentional. But come on, like, I miss Kasumi. We haven't seen her in a while.
行こう、ゆうや。ミーシャに会わせてあげる。
Okay. Alright, I'll go get a car. Be a good girl, wait for me here, do you? Hey!
大丈夫。こっち。
Okay.
こっち。
Hey, don't wander off by yourself. That's a sign written in Cyrillic? Can't make heads or tails of it. What's up with this place? I thought it was a hospital at first, but I kind of get the feeling it's not. Research facility. Sort of ominous, even. Yeah, I knew I shouldn't have dropped her by the entrance when we went my merry way, but she looked like she was about to cry. Against my better judgment, I followed her inside. Say, you sure it's okay for me to be here? And is it really okay for me to meet this, Misha person?
ミーシャはいい子。平気。
How much you want to bet she's not that nice? She's just nice to her. And the other one you mentioned?
クリスカは、とっても優しいよ。
Well, alright.
行こう。
Hey, at least it's safe to say there's no chance this is a military facility. I mean, they would never let an outsider like me simply waltz into the premises if that were the case. Right? Still, residential area and all, there's something oddly disquieting about this place. Let's hope nothing happens as long as I stick with my chaperone. And I guess if worse comes to worse, I can simply explain myself to Misha and Kriska.
Oh.
Hey, what's the matter? Dangerous to stop without warning, you know?
ミーシャ、こっちかも。
Wait, what? Yeah, this place is starting to get real ominous, alright. Some beds lined up together, a huge tank, and is that a robot arm? That's too creepy, even for a sweatshop. Bunch of things written on the walls, but it's all in Cyrillic. We're inside Soviet territory, but this is still a UN base. Want to kill them to offer some English translations? Gosh darn international language. Well, how American of you! Why? It's their space, dude. Let them, if it's their territory, they don't expect people to be coming here, why would they not fill it with something that they find comforting and familiar? God. Darn international language English. It's only international language circumstance. And I suppose English does lend itself to adaptability through cultures, so that kind of goes in its favor, but still.
ここ。多分、ここ。
Hey, so... Huh? 8-digit password device, built-in palm reading scanner? That's an insane increase in security level. I'd be like, wait a minute, are you really sure I should be here? Dude, seriously. Innocent little girl is entirely at home operating security on that scale? My best guess, her parents are big shots of some kind and she's used to having the run of the place. I'll need to come up with one heck of an explanation for her parents, or they'll send me back to home in a body bag.
いたミーシ
Huh? Sorry for the sudden intrusion. I'm a surface pilot with the UN for... The room's empty.
ャミーシャ
Aww, that's Misha? Okay, props. I did not expect that.
そうミーシャ
The bear. Misha's a teddy bear? So this is Misha. Gotcha. I like you. You're cute. And here I thought Misha would be a tough as nails father or some overprotective mother. But no, Misha was a teddy bear all along. We've been talking past each other this whole time. Well, that's done and done. She's home now. That's all that matters. Time for me to beat a hasty retreat.
動くな
Crap. Hey, what the?
動くなと言っている次は撃つ
Won't you calm down? There's a kid here.
両手を頭につけて、ゆっくりこちらを向け。
Alright.
怪しいと感じれば、即座に射殺する。
Chris guys, presume?
クリスカ
Visca? Are you her family? There's another good shot here. What?
家族イーニャがそう言ったのか
Yeah, she did. So the little girl's called Inya, huh? Well, that's a nice to finally put a name to her face. This woman here is more pressing concern. Russian-style shooting stance with her sights set squarely on my head. Yeah, she's no amateur. She's a trained soldier. Darn it, today's not my day. Everything's been going down the drain since that exercise this afternoon. If I knew this would happen, I would have gone out drinking with VG and the gang.
何を笑っているずいぶん余裕だな。貴様、自分が何をしたのか分かっているのか
Lady, I'm real sorry about barging in here, but I was only trying to get this little girl back home safe. I had no ulterior motives.
本当だよクリスカ本当なの
イーニャいい子だからお部屋から出てちょうだい。
No, please don't. You're my lifeline.
クリスカやめてよ
その場でゆっくりひざまずけ。いいな。ゆっくりだぞ。貴様は、ユーヤブリッジズ。
Huh? Yeah, so what? Okay, I'm completely lost. How come Ice Warrior Princess here knows my name? The bloodlust. I'm sure I felt it somewhere before, but where?
クリスカダメ
Uh-oh.
侍
そうよ。
Oh, it's memory.
パパは侍。礼節をわきまえ、思いやりの心を忘れない謙虚な人。だから、多くの人を助けるために、遠い国に行っているのよ。
Oh, so he thought about it as abandoning them, but Yuya's dad saw it as a sense of duty. Had to go back to save his homeland. I wonder if that's related to the when the beta made their when they made the land invasion and like Kyoto fell. Because I could imagine a Japanese American staying in America as a citizen, but then, but having, family obviously in Japan, but then seeing that the front, instead of being like contained across the sea, had suddenly hit the mainland. I could see him jumping up saying like, no, I have to go. Like, they need me. I have to help. And then didn't come back.
弱い人たちを守るために、いつも先頭に立って戦うの。ユウヤ、寂しいかもしれないけど、あなたもパパのように心の強い立派な人になりなさい。
Oh man, how hard would it be to lose your spouse like that and have to try and keep up like appearances and happiness with your kid? Like, because you don't want his heart to break. You don't want him to suffer. You don't want him to worry. You just want him to have a life and be a kid, But like explaining that your dad's probably never coming home, or maybe he's already died. Like, how do you tell a kid that,
そしたらパパは帰ってきてくれるかな
Oh, that would break my heart.
そうね。いつパパに会ってもいいように準備しておきましょう。ママも一緒に頑張るわ。
うん、わかった。僕もパパみたいに立派になる。侍になる。
Aww.
だから奴に気を許すなと言っただろう。いつか必ず痛い目を見るとな。
違うわ、父さん。あの人は悪くない。それに私、後悔なんてしてないもの。
何が違うものか。ジャップはずる賢くて卑怯なクズどもだ。お前はもてあそばれ、邪魔になったから捨てられたんだ。
Oh boy, what a classy boomer.
父さんが彼の何を知っているっていうの？おお、やめてちょうだい。
Especially not in front of the kid.
哀れな我が娘よ。あの男はお前を裏切ったんだぞ。いい加減目を覚ませ。
目を覚まさなきゃいけないのはどっち？東南アジアの捕虜収容所で父さんにひどいことをしたのは彼じゃないのよ。
Okay, okay, that puts context. I called him a boomer, and he is, and he's being unfair. But how could I understand it being difficult to accept a person as family when you'd gone through something like that? Because let's be real here. The Japanese were horrific with their POWs. There are like we always think about like the mistreatment of prisoners of war and political enemies under Hitler's regime. But Japan was pretty brutal. I mean, I think everyone was. America was brutal too. But there was a lot of stuff that happened, and a lot of that is kind of tucked away, that a lot of people don't talk about it. I understand why. It's really distressing, especially if you're like building good relations with a nation like Japan. Like post World War II, we went from literally like killing each other all the time to them being would a tributary state count? Like essentially, like they weren't allowed to have a military. We had the military, but then we also gave them autonomy as a nation, essentially. Now, at first, that just meant that they kind of had to rebuild everything on their own. Kind of a crappy deal, but it made it so America didn't have to spend a ton of resources trying to get them back. But then it also gave them this door to like pull up their boots, embrace the new relationship with the USA, and through it, they were able to find niches in the markets and build and prosper and grow one of the mightiest economies in the 80s. Like an economy so powerful that even though like today it's kind of more like around the same lines of other first world nations, they still are like they still have so much like influence over markets and electronics and vehicles that's carried over from that boom. It's amazing to have a nation that went literally from like nothing to having like almost all their major cities like burned down to the ground by the United States, to then bouncing back within like a couple generations to the amazing powerhouse and house of culture that it is incredible. And it's not fair to hold people accountable for the decisions of their grandparents and great-grandparents. But when you're living through it, that's going to leave scars you can't just say no to. I would never expect or want this person to feel like he's obligated to accept Japanese at all. It sucks and it's racist, but you can't just override terrible memories because like things are better now. Like it's hard to let go of that past, and I have sympathy for people who were going through that. So I understand his hostility here. It's not right. It's not justified. But instead of it just being a blind racist hatred, there's pain that's tied up into that.
お前にはジャップの汚さが分かってないんだ。あいつらは不意打ちで戦争を。
もうたくさんだわ。私と彼は心から愛し合っていた。父さんや母さんがなんて思おうと、そのことに変わりはない。
See here, like when she was talking to Yuya, she talked to him as if dad's coming home, but when she's talking to her father, she's using past tense when referring to him.
愛し合っていただと？だったらなぜ自分の子を宿した女を置き去りにできる？
それは仕方のない
方がないだと？お前の未来を奪い、自分の子供すら顧みない、そんな男を、お前は！
違うのよ、父さん。あの人は。
Talk about a crappy situation.
それだけではないぞ。ブリッジス家の伝統を、我が一族の誇りを、奴が踏みにじり、ズタズタに引き裂いたんだ。
Huh.
最愛の我が娘ミラよ。お前は、それすらも仕方ないというのか。
ごめんなさい、父さん。すべて私のせいなの。
違う。悪いのはジャップだ。お前は騙され、誰にも望まれていない子を産んだんだ。
How can you say that? I don't care how angry you are. You just don't say that about a kid. A kid's innocent. No one asks to be born. That life should mean something, though. Like, once you're here, you're in this world, and you have a purpose and identity. Like, you're just as valuable as anybody else. And the fact that people, ostensibly with honor, will completely ignore children who are suffering, children who need homes, children who need help and support, really depressing.
信じられない。父さん、子供の前でそんなひどいこと言わないで。
こいつさえいなければお前は、こいつさえ。
Don't you say it.
お願い、父さん。もうやめてちょうだい。
Don't do it. Not with a kid here, especially.
こいつさえ。
ねえ、もしかして、あれがブリッジスのお嬢様の？私初めて見たわ。
Huh.
声が大きいって。とにかく下手に関わるな。あの家に睨まれたら、この町にはいられなくなるぞ。
So I'm guessing a smaller town, and the Bridges were very prominent in the military. Maybe post-war, that Grandpa Bridges was in the military and retired maybe around the beginning of the Beta invasion, which would also explain why he's so hyper-focused on his experiences of World War II and not so much on the Beta invasion, which ostensibly is much worse.
まあ寝ている犬は起こすなってこった。それにしても、大旦那様、お気の毒にな。
男兄弟の末っ子だけに、ミラお嬢様の可愛がりようは、それはもう。
What? Is she ruined for having a kid? That's not how that works.
お嬢様もね。いい大学出してもらって、バカでかい企業に入ったってのに、よりによってなぜ日本人なんかと。
It's like these people don't understand the concept of love that kind of tends to override things like prominent jobs. Like, sure, it's great when you can have a good education, get a good job. That's fantastic. And typically you can have that and a family, right? But having... I think when it comes to priorities, she's put her priorities here, and that's what matters. She's decided that Yuya was her priority. And it's a shame that because people disagree that he should have been priority, that they decide to like drag her name through the mud like this.
ああ、あれだけ良くしてもらってな。名家であるブリッジスの名に泥を塗るような真似、よくできたもんだよ。
才女と言っても所詮箱入りだ。大方ジャップに騙されたんだろ
まったく、戦争といいなんといい、どれだけわしらに迷惑かければ気が済むんだ、ジャップどもは。
This is the sad truth that when America like signed and like when Japan surrendered, there were a lot of people who were upset with the fact that they became a tributary. Like, we gave them autonomy, let them have like like so much authority, power, and control again. Because after like so much had been done, a lot of them had become jaded and believed that it should have just become conquered territory, that it just should have become an extension of the United States. I'm really glad they didn't do that. I think a lot of culture would have been lost, and I think we would have lost a lot of really good stuff. Good people, good traditions, good history. Bad history, but then good history too. But like at the time, it was a pretty unpopular belief. I mean, heck, I didn't see any like a persecution against Japanese in America, but I grew up out west in like Idaho, Utah, Montana areas. And in Idaho is where they had the Japanese, we don't call them concentration camps, but they were concentration camps. In the sense that like we concentrated a demographic of people in a location that was surrounded by barbed wire. Didn't take it as far as, you know, the Germans did during the same time period, but it doesn't make it any less egregious. Like those, I grew up where those things happened. And then we also had like again, I didn't have like that relation with anybody who was of Japanese descent growing up, but I had close friends who were German descendant. And their grandpa told them a story about how his parents had migrated to the United States before, like between World War I and World War II. And so he got brought over and became a citizen as a child. And he lived out west and, you know, had his own like homestead. He was like, just like, he and his dad were at the store and somebody pulled up in a truck, got out of their truck, pulled out a rifle and attempted to shoot them to death because they were German. They were German American citizens, fully supporting the war effort, you know, doing what they were doing for not a king country, but for the country, you know, 100% behind and against what the Germans were doing. But because they were of descent of Germans, somebody who's lost a family member to the Germans in the war decided that all Germans were evil because of it. And so the domino effect is real, and it's crazy to imagine that actually happened to my friend's dad. Like somebody my age, their father saw this firsthand, this prejudice that could happen, which is just crazy to me. But it's real.
Oh.
Yeah.
俺さ、クリスマスはおじさんのところに行くんだ。スキーに連れてってくれるって。へえ、いいな。
It's like they're throwing eggs at him, but they're having a casual conversation. They're not even talking about him.
うちは親戚中集まって毎年恒例のパーティーさ。プレゼントすっげえもらえるんだ。
Oh man, how much you want to bet he's never had a present from his family? Besides his mom.
おい、見ろよ。卵まみれの汚いのがいるぞ。おい、ジャップ邪魔すんなよ。俺たち、いらない生卵捨ててんだぞ。
Jeez. Kids are cruel, man.
あれ捨ててるだけなのに、なんでジャップに当たっちゃうのかな
お前ら何やってんだこんなことしやがって。洗ってやる。行こう。
Hey, that's good. Somebody was watching out for him. Or maybe not.
あれおかしいな。全然落ちないぞ。
Oh man, what a rug pull.
もう、大丈夫だから。
大丈夫じゃないさ。だって黄色いぜ。まだ君がこびりついてんだろ。いいかお前ら。次からは証拠残らないようにやれよ。こいつんちのじじい、面倒だからな。
It's almost worse. He's just like, hey, come on. We don't want to get in trouble. So make sure that like you don't leave any marks.
ユーヤブリッジス。どうしたんだ、ずぶ濡れじゃないか。
なんでもないです、先生。お水を飲もうとしたら。
まったく何をやっているんだ、こんな冬の最中に。震えてるじゃないか。
寒いんです、先生。
迎えの車はもう来ているから、寒いなら走っていきなさい。少しはマシになる。 さようなら、ゆうや。良いクリスマスを。
ゆうや。
パパは、なんでママと僕を守ってくれないの？なんでそばにいてくれないの？
ゆうや。あなたはパパの息子、侍の子。パパも遠くで頑張っているわ。だから負けないで。お願い。あなたが皆が分かり合えるよう、
She didn't give up.
助けてあげて。
She still didn't give up.
もう嫌だよ。パパはいつ帰ってきてくれるの？
やかましいぞ見ろ。私の屋敷で騒がせるな。
弱い人を守るのが侍なんでしょ？どうしてパパ、僕たちを守ってくれないの？
黙れ！静かにしろ。
どうしておじいちゃんは僕を嫌うの？
ゆうや。
本当のことを教えてよ。ママお願い、教えてよ。ママ！
どうしても知りたい。わかったわ。じゃあ教えてあげる。
ママ。
あなたがみんなに嫌われる理由、それはね、
貴様が日本人の面汚しだからだ。
Really? Is that what she said? Or is that what Fetch, wait. No, she didn't say that. That doesn't make any sense. I think he's just conflating what Yui said with what she said at that time. Alright, Yuya. I was giving you crap before. I still think you're kind of narcissistic and really need a wake-up call. But man, I can't really have anything but sympathy for you. That's a crappy way to grow up. I could see that making you pretty jaded. It's funny because like he blames Japanese for it, but the fact that he also kind of like distances himself from everyone else might be also because he expects them to hate him too. It's like he hates the Japanese because everyone else hated the Japanese through him. And so he holds that against his heritage because it was something that he has no control over. He didn't ask to be half Japanese. He didn't ask to have that burden upon himself. It was just something he had to deal with. Go a little more. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon, but May 10th, 2001. Actually, maybe this is a good time. General Headquarters Building, Yukon Army Base. Is he in prison? Oh gosh. Right, Soviet MPs took me into custody after my run-in with the Soviet chick. Must have fallen asleep at some point. Effing fever dream, man. The more I think about this whole deal, the more pieces don't fit. The MPs rushed into the room when I was held at gunpoint. Perfect timing in the overwhelming numbers. The facility must be some kind of hospital or research institute. A pretty important one, judging from the staggering security presence on site, so how come I could sneak in so easily? Well, not like it matters. Now that I've made my way inside such an important installation, it shouldn't be surprised the Reds think I'm a spy. And that's what makes the whole thing weird. The Soviet MPs famed their ruthlessness, handed me over to the UN right after questioning. No one-way ticket to the gulag, no torture, no nothing. Yuya must have told everyone I was innocent, but there's no way that she has that much pull at her age. Doubt her actions were part of some elaborate trap either. Would have been forced to become a double agent before ever seeing the light of the sun again. What the heck's going on here? Did I really waltz into some sort of research facility with a bunch of MPs coincidentally happen to be waiting for me? Now the whole thing stinks. Can't shake the feeling I was someone's pawn. For all I know, it could be a Boeing effing around and me simply being caught in the middle. No, it's funny because like he's seeing like whispers and shadows. I genuinely don't think so. I think she was just like, I think she's a caring kid, you know, and just wanted to like. You know what her reasoning probably was? He's upset. I wish he wasn't upset. When I'm upset, I hug Misha. I should get him to hug Misha too. He's like, Misha brings me happy, so I'll bring him to Misha and help him be happy. Because she doesn't, she's grown up with all of that crap around her. She has no clue it's weird. And so for her, she's just like, oh yeah, of course, like I like this guy, I trust him. But everyone else is like, what are you doing? Whatever it is, this sucks balls. Yesterday was already shaping to be the worst day ever, thanks to her. Ugh. Even my gosh darn dreams are rotten. Is this someone else's idea of a joke? I'm not laughing. Why did I have to dream about the past? Today of all days. With someone who could wipe my mind. Hey, they can do that technically. So did his mom actually say that? That just doesn't seem right. Like, why would she say that? Like, why would she say like, oh, your dad left and people abandoned you because you're a disgrace to the Japanese people. He was a kid. How could he be a disgrace to Japanese people when he doesn't even know what that means? That freaking woman. Crap. Hate to admit it, but the old B was right all along. The man was a crank, and I swear the whole concept of inside voice was beyond him. I used to fear him when I was a kid, didn't know any better. The way he tormented my mom all the time, I used to think he was evil. He kind of was. I would say he was. He was a nasty piece of crap from the cradle to the grave, but he was right about the Japanese. No. His hatred was justified. It's interesting to see this though, because I have to remember this game was written in Japan first. It was written by someone from Japan. So like, it's interesting that they're going through this perspective here. I think it's cool, narratively especially. But it's also interesting because I don't know. Like I'm curious to see where they're gonna take this part of the story. Like, what are the things that we're gonna learn, that Yuya's gonna learn, that Yui's gonna learn? Like, what is gonna be coming from this past? And Grandma, at least she was always kind and caring to Mom, but the old bag used to act like I didn't exist. Mom could never come to terms with the fact that a son of a bee treated her like a side piece. Grandma was very much in the same boat. My presence was a constant reminder of what my old man put my mother through, so while the old bag tried not to be outright nasty to me, she couldn't bring herself to show me any kindness either. The way it looks to me now, the old bee was trying to do her best to play the cards that she'd been dealt, to help Mom and Grandpa bear with the tragedy that upended their lives. Children aren't a tragedy, though. His violent tendencies and abusive language, that's how he coped, because in the end, he was powerless to improve the situation. Cool. Yeah, that justifies it. Took me years to understand. Dang.
そうよ。パパは侍。礼節をわきまえ、思いやりの心を忘れない謙虚な人。だから。
Mom was running away from reality. She never stopped clinging to the idealized image of my old man that she'd created inside her mind.
弱い人たちを守るために、いつも先頭に立って戦うの。ゆうや、寂しいかもしれないけど、あなたもパパのように、心の強い立派な人になりなさい。
I think there's no chance the guy's still alive, but what if he was? It would be interesting to find out if he was actually kind of a dirtbag. I was desperate to set her free. After the old bee croaked, I did everything in my power to make it happen. I did whatever I could to release Mom from the curse, from the glorified image of a coward who ran away from her without warning and drove our family mad in the process. I was no better than the bee of a grandpa. I denied Mom's delusions with all my might. Every conversation turned into a shouting match, with us ranting and raving at each other. To say I was always in a sour mood would be putting it lightly. Oh man. What a crappy situation. She gets yelled at even by her kid, whom she's done everything for. These episodes were a disgusting reminder that Bridget's blood flows through my veins as well. Because of my cursed Japanese blood, because of my existence, Mom ended up miserable. Now, interesting. This style of home is reminiscent of homes constructed in the southeast of the United States, like the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida. Not necessarily the case. It could just be like a wraparound porch. It's just a nice wraparound porch, but it's something I definitely see more in the southeast. I refuse to let it happen. So I enlisted in the army, frantically trying not to repeat the same mistakes my old B made. I sought to prove my worth beyond a shadow of a doubt, both as a soldier and as an American citizen. I was determined to become the best of the best. That was the only way to shut up the people who made life hell for Mom. That's what I believed. Samurai, yeah, right. The samurai talk probably was one of Mom's delusions. I doubt there's even a chance it was true, but if it was, I've got the perfect example of a samurai right here. Samurai schoolgirl of all things, one whose head is stuck so far up her butt she can't see out of her ears. She can see out of her ears, nothing but talk. So you think?
Yuya bridge shoi.
Hi. All right, we're gonna end here for now because things are gonna accelerate. I think it's a good place to stop. That is intense. Holy crap. I mean, we're only just starting. There's so much more we get to explore, but hefty. That's all I can say. That was interesting. It's good to know, though. I'm glad we didn't have to wait too long to kind of understand Yuya's, at least, base motivations. Like, there's more to it, obviously, but it's good to have this frame of reference. It gives us something to work with. It gives us something to kind of relate to, which is really cool. I think it's well done, and I'm excited to see where it plays out. But we'll have to do that next week. For now, let's just digest kind of what we've learned and the situations we've seen, and this lovely, oh, he's in prison. Good grief. What a day. Let's see how this all plays out next week. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. And especially thank you to the patrons who made it possible for me to be able to do this regularly. It means the world to me that you're even here, that you're joining me for this journey, and hopefully I'm making it worth your while. I look forward to playing all the different stories we get to cover this week, and there's a lot of exciting ones. If you haven't seen the Friday series, Saint Maker, I think we're almost done with it. It's pretty short, but very intense. It's psychological horror. Really nice one. Like it's well written so far, and I think the acting is pretty good. The music's spectacular. Like the voice acting is great, but the music is and the atmospheric like audio tuning and audio setting is just off the walls, amazing. So I definitely think it's worth checking out just for a quick read through. Also, it's good to support smaller developers as well. But yeah, other than that, there's tons of good stuff to do. Tomorrow will be Yakuza, and plod further along with everything else. So hopefully I'll get to see you there. So until the next video watching me, I'm seeing you next. I'll see you there.